In the early morning hours of August 31st, 2010, near Lake Crystal, Minnesota, Jennifer Nibbe called 911. An intruder had broken into her home and shot her husband and attacked her. Police arrived and found her husband Jim dead in his bed from a gunshot wound to the back of the head. As police began their investigation, they discovered the couple had serious financial problems. They also found out that Jennifer had a secret she was hiding from everybody. Hi everyone, my name is Anne, but I also go by my nickname Nini. I like to focus on Midwest true crime because I'm a Minnesota farmer's daughter. Today we're going to go to Minnesota and talk about the murder of Jim Nibbe. James Mervyn Nibbe was born on October 30th, 1983 to Mervyn and Karen in Mankato, Minnesota. He went by Jim. After graduating from high school, he went to Minnesota West Community College. In October 2005, he started working as an apprentice electrician. Jim loved to hunt, fish, kayak, and just be outdoors. Family and friends were very important to him. He was always willing to help anyone in any way he could. In 2007, when Jim was 24, one of his friends went into diabetic shock, so Jim called 911. One of the nurses who showed up at the scene was 31-year-old Jennifer Gilman. Jim and Jennifer ended up chatting a little and realized they had common interests, including hunting. Jim's friend recovered, but something happy had come out of that event because Jim and Jennifer started dating. Jennifer grew up in rural Minnesota. She had been very popular in school. She became pregnant when she was 16 and decided to try to be the best mom she could be, despite her young age. She was very driven and became a nurse and was able to buy a home for she and her son near Lake Crystal, Minnesota. Jennifer's sister said of Jennifer, quote, "She was just always a strong-willed person. She was going to do what she wants to do, and that's just all there is to it," unquote. Jim and Jennifer quickly fell in love, and Jim also grew close to Jennifer's son, who was a teenager when they started dating. I thought this part was adorable. Jim asked Jennifer's son for permission to marry his mother, and he gave it. Jim and Jennifer got married on May 24th, 2008. Their newlywed bliss was quickly dampened by financial burdens. Jim did not make much money as an apprentice electrician, so most of the responsibility to pay bills fell on Jennifer's nursing career. They had a lot of credit card debt and took out a second mortgage, but they got behind on payments. Jennifer often worked 2 to 3 jobs so she could make ends meet. She complained to her family that she was frustrated with being the breadwinner. On the morning of August 31st, 2010, Jennifer called 911 and said an intruder was in their home and had cut her with a knife and shot her husband. She said she grabbed her son and ran to the basement to hide. When police arrived, they found 26-year-old Jim lying face down in his bed, dead from a gunshot wound to the back of his head. Jennifer said she had been getting ready in the bathroom when she heard a gunshot. She ran into the bedroom and came face to face with a man dressed all in black with stocking over his face. The intruder grabbed her hair and dragged her into the living room where he cut her thighs. He started to tie her up, but the dog started barking and scared him. Jennifer said he told her, "You're lucky you're not dead," and then he fled. Jennifer said this was when she grabbed her son and then ran down to the basement and called 911. Police found a knife and rope in the living room, but both of those items belonged to the Nibbes. They also determined that Jim had been shot with Jennifer's shotgun, one that Jim had just bought her that summer. There was no forced entry, and nothing had been stolen from the house. It had recently rained, but there were no footprints or strange tire marks found in the mud on the property. It was very odd that all of the weapons belonged to the Nibbes, because if you're going to break into somebody's house, you're most likely going to bring something with you. Jennifer's story also changed. First, she said she had been in the shower when she heard the gunshot. Then she said she was brushing her teeth when she heard it. Jennifer's son said he hadn't heard the gunshot because he was still sleeping at that point, but he did say it was around 6 a.m. that his mother woke him up and rushed him down to the basement. Police found out about the couple's financial difficulties, but they also found out about another secret. Jennifer had a severe addiction to opioids. This predated her relationship with Jim, and she had been hiding it from everybody. At the time of Jim's death, Jennifer was taking 180 pain pills a week. She stole prescription pads from work and wrote herself prescriptions for pain pills. She bought pills through online pharmacies, and this was a significant reason for the couple's financial problems. Police found Jennifer's journal, and in it she wrote about how she still loved her husband and he was a good man, but she was bored with her marriage. In June 2010, she contacted an ex-boyfriend and they began talking. It doesn't sound like they had a physical affair, but they would sext each other, and Jennifer would send him nude pictures of herself. Jennifer wrote in her journal that she was in love with this man, but he was in love with his girlfriend who had just given birth to their baby. In June of 2010, just 2 months before Jim's death, Jennifer took out a life insurance policy on him worth $250,000. The day after his death, she called the insurance company to ask about the payout. Not that I want to give advice to anybody, but why are people so stupid when they do this? When they take out a life insurance policy on their spouse and then they kill them or have them killed, they immediately call the insurance company for the payout. Like, how do you not realize how bad that looks? A funeral was held for Jim on September 8th. Apparently, Jennifer didn't cry during the service. But to be fair, people have different ways that they grieve, and some people don't cry. Jim's family wanted him buried in their family plot, but for some reason Jennifer refused that and had him buried in a different plot. The family also asked for some of Jim's belongings just to have reminders of him, but Jennifer refused that too. Police had very quickly narrowed in on Jennifer, however, and they didn't believe her intruder story at all. 2 days after Jim's funeral, Jennifer was arrested for his murder. Her lawyers had her psychologically evaluated because she claimed to hear voices and said she had no memory of when Jim died. Her lawyers also claimed that Jim had been physically and sexually abusing Jennifer, and this had caused her to have PTSD. Prior to Jim's death, though, Jennifer had never mentioned any of this to anybody, and she hadn't even written it in her journal. They only found the mentions of Jim about how good of a man he was. She even told investigators how good he was.
He was a good person. There were some things in our marriage that were not the greatest, but I mean, he was a good person.
She told police that Jim wanted sex more often than she did.
He was after me about sex a lot, and that was something that bothered me.
Caused some friction between you two?
Yeah. You know, wanted on a pretty regular basis, and I tried the best I could, but sometimes it just, sometimes I just had problems with that, and if you continue to push and push and push, it just ends up not being fun for the other person. So there was resentment there, because it was a constant thing. A constant, you want to do it, you want to do it, you want to... And there was no romance left when it came to that. It was like, fine, just finish and get it over with so I can go to sleep, I guess. So I actually had made something up that I had a yeast infection or something like that.
Okay. So he was...
Sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. And he was that night wanting to have sex and you didn't want to?
And I didn't want to.
Did it become a big fight or was it just kind of the...
He usually just got mad and rolled over and went to bed. That happened every week.
Okay.
If not twice a week. He would get mad at me for it. If he could have it every day, he could.
Her lawyer's proof of Jim being abusive was that he had tested positive for HIV on a rapid test performed during his autopsy. Because obviously having HIV is a direct correlation with you being abusive. Like, what the heck? A medical examiner said, though, those rapid tests on autopsies very often give false results due to the decomposition of the body. Plus, when Jennifer had taken out that life insurance policy on Jim just 2 months before his death, he had to have a physical, and that physical tested for HIV, and it was negative. In July 2012, prosecutors offered Jennifer a plea deal of dropping first-degree murder if she pled guilty to second-degree murder. She accepted and confessed there had been no intruder.
I woke up at 5:30 in a panic. And that's when I went out and I got the gun. And I loaded one shell. And I came back into the bedroom and kind of rested the gun on his shoulder. And they just kept saying, he's the devil, he's the devil. Yeah. Then I pulled the trigger.
It's okay.
Oh my God, I'm just so sick of this. This is not me. I'm not this person. It was horrible. What did happen? I thought, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? And that's why I made it look like someone tried to hurt me and came in and... I mean, I can't bring him back, but I need to make this right. Somewhat.
She said the stress of her addiction and their finances caused her to do it.
We know about the drug stuff, Jen. Okay, if you're out of your mind on drugs, you're out of your mind on drugs. That's okay, but we need to know that.
I have an addiction to prescription pain pills.
Okay. When did it start?
I'm so ashamed.
It's okay.
I call prescriptions in for myself. I'm just so ashamed.
Getting harder to keep that secret, or?
Well, financially wise, I suppose it was. Because I had to pay for those. And, you know, it wasn't cheap, but I also had to pay for everything else. So.
Yeah, it seemed like they said, from what we're hearing, Jim hadn't been working much up until recently.
Up until these last 4 weeks, I suppose.
So you were carrying the mortgage and the bills, and like you say, working 3 jobs. It's a lot of pressure.
I don't understand how somebody goes from this to this, just like that. I don't get it. It's everything we've talked about. The pressure of everything, the finances, and the drugs. You live your day for that next fix.
And Jim didn't know anything about this either. You were able to keep it from him, at least.
For the most part, I would say it was my headache medicine or stomach medicine.
Jennifer made a statement in court and said, quote, "I understand the Nibbe family not forgiving me. I understand that. I understand the pain that I have caused. I loved my husband. I have protected my husband. I'm not here to damage his reputation or integrity. But I don't care how close you are to somebody. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors." Unquote. Jennifer was sentenced to 25 years in prison and is eligible for parole in 2027 when she is 50 years old. So in just 3 years, Jennifer might be out and about free. Jim's family didn't feel the sentencing was fair, and I agree with them. In a victim impact statement, Jim's sister said, quote, "The only tears that you have shed so far have been in court. You are not sorry that you took Jim's life. You're only sorry that you told investigators he was a wonderful person that didn't deserve what you did to him." Unquote. In 2014, the Nibbe family filed a wrongful death suit against Jennifer and sought $1 million. A jury ordered her to pay $220,000. The punitive portion was settled in confidentiality, so it's unknown if Jennifer was ordered to pay the family more than that. As part of the settlement, she issued a public apology to the Nibbe family. Why didn't she do that in court? Jim's family set up a scholarship in his name for students at the high school he graduated from. Jim's family had to fight to get his belongings back, and it sounds like they're still fighting to this day, even with Jennifer in prison, so I'm not sure how that works. For example, they didn't get the guest book from Jim's funeral until 2022. The family has been working to get a law passed called Jim's Law that would help victims' families have rights to their loved ones' belongings if they have been killed by their spouse. Since Jennifer hadn't allowed Jim to be buried in the family plot, the Nibbe family asked the cemetery board if his parents could change their plots so they could be buried next to Jim, and the cemetery approved that. Jim's father passed away 1 year after Jim did. He was buried next to his son. The opioid addiction part of this case grabbed my attention because I'm an opioid addict in recovery, so I understand her addiction, but that should never be an excuse for killing somebody. And I really don't get why the prosecutors offered her a plea deal in this case, because I think they had enough evidence where she would have been found guilty of first-degree murder if it had gone to trial. I feel awful for the family to know that the woman who killed their son and brother is going to be a free woman in just 3 years. That has just got to be awful. That's all I have for this case. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.